Hi guys, welcome! In this video, we're going to take a closer look at Himmelmez, the newest hero class coming to ROM. Unlike traditional DPS classes, Himmelmez is a highly versatile hero class that combines physical offense, survivability, and crowd control. Her kit introduces several unique mechanics such as a mobile range-shaped damage zone, undead element attacks, scaling based on HP loss, shield nullification, and group anti-fatal utility. As a result, Himmelmez can be played in multiple ways, serving not only as a damage dealer, but also as a durable frontliner that excels at zone control and teamfight disruption. In this guide, we'll explain Himmelmez's skill mechanics in detail and then break down her strengths and weaknesses so you can decide whether she fits your playstyle and if she's worth investing in for PvE and PvP. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. First up, let's look at Himmelmez's core gameplay mechanic. Himmelmez's core passive, Puppet Master, allows her to summon the terrifying creatures of the Abyss using the Impending Decree adventure skill. These creatures patrol in a ring-shaped area around Himmelmez, dealing physical damage every second to all enemies within the area while also forcibly reducing the enemy's movement speed by 80%. This creates constant pressure around Himmelmez and makes enemies think twice before getting too close. Unlike normal living summons, the terrifying creatures are persistent battlefield units, so they cannot be targeted, damaged, or killed by enemies. They only disappear when you change maps, log out of the game, or when Himmelmez neither deals nor receives damage for 30 seconds. Using the Soul Marsh Emergence adventure skill, the patrol ranges of her creatures can be switched to 12 meters for long-range control, 4 meters for close-range pressure, or the default 8 meters for balanced coverage. This gives Himmelmez a great deal of flexibility and allows her to adapt her zone control depending on the situation. Himmelmez's ultimate skill, Apocalypse Descends, further enhances her core mechanic. Upon activation, she sacrifices 10% of her current HP every second in exchange for significant buffs to her terrifying creature. While the ultimate is active, the creature deals additional collision damage every 0.5 seconds whenever they come into contact with an enemy. The collision damage uses the same multiplier as Puppet Master's area damage, but has the capability to instantly execute enemy players below 25% HP. To maximize this effect, you can use the Divine Decree Shadow adventure skill, which temporarily stops the creature from moving for 5 seconds while also increasing the collision radius by 2 meters. Proper timing and positioning are crucial to increase the chance of colliding with enemies and executing them. The damage of terrifying creatures can be boosted even further. At level 7 core passive, if only a single enemy is being attacked by the terrifying creatures, it will deal 50% more damage. With this star rune, the damage can increase by up to 20% when repeatedly attacking the same target and stacking up to 3 times. During Apocalypse Descends, every time a creature kills or executes an enemy player, all of its damage increases by an additional 20% for 10 seconds, and this effect can stack multiple times. Another unique mechanic is unlocked after reaching max core passive. When the terrifying creatures kill, execute, or hit the same player 5 times within 10 seconds, they can capture that player's soul. Himmelmez can then use the Soul Resurrection adventure skill to transform the captured soul into a puppet that inherits all of the target player's attributes and automatically fights alongside her for up to 25 seconds. This creates an especially powerful threat in PvP and GVG. Imagine capturing the soul of a heavily geared whale player and turning them into your own temporary summon. Not only does it add significant damage and utility to your side, but it can also create tremendous psychological pressure for the opposing team. Up next, let's take a look at Himmelmez's other sources of damage. First, Piercing Punishment is one of her main damaging skills. Himmelmez summons bone spikes from hell that erupt from the ground, piercing both the target and all enemies along its path. If the target is already within the patrol range of the terrifying creatures, another Piercing Punishment is cast, doubling its damage potential. In other words, enemies trapped within Himmelmez's zone of control are punished twice. Its damage can be increased even further through the corresponding star rune, which grants up to 60% additional damage. Second, we have Wrath of God, which is one of Himmelmez's strongest AoE skill. Upon activation, Himmelmez unleashes a violent surge of power around herself, dealing massive physical damage to all enemies within a 5-meter radius. The skill also knocks enemies back by 4 meters while completely ignoring the endure effect. Afterward, bone spikes remain on the battlefield for 5 seconds, continuously damaging enemies within the area every second. This allows Wrath of God to function as both a burst damage skill and an area denial ability. This skill has a relatively short 12-second cooldown, which can be reduced even further through cooldown reduction effects and its corresponding S rune, allowing Himmelmez to use it more frequently in extended fights. And third, we have the Underworld Passage, which is another AoE skill that can be cast at a designated location. When activated, Himmelmez opens a gateway to the underworld, causing undead hands to emerge from the ground within a 5-meter radius. Enemies caught inside the area take continuous physical damage every second for 5 seconds, while also being rooted for 1 second. And if the target is immune to root, they are instead forcibly slowed by 80%. Combined with the 80% movement speed reduction from the terrifying creatures, enemies can become almost completely immobilized while standing inside both effects. This makes Himmelmez an excellent counter against classes that rely on movement to survive. Another important thing to note, however, is that Underworld Passage is considered a ground-based effect. This means it can be blocked by Chronomancer's Earth Field or converted into a Serpent Domain by Jormungandr. Up next, let's break down Himmelmez's buff and domain-based skills. First is Bloodlust Judgment, which is a strong offensive self-buff. Upon use, it increases Himmelmez's physical pen and ignore physical death by 30%, while also granting her attacks a 30% chance to inflict an undispellable bleed status that lasts for 5 seconds. With the related star rune, the bleed effect becomes even more dangerous, as it can reduce the enemy's healing received by up to 30%. This allows Himmelmez to utilize a bleed-focused build in both PvE and PvP, creating strong synergy with other bleed-oriented classes such as Kalitzberg and Tyrant. The only drawback is that while Bloodlust Judgment is active, casting class skills consumes an additional 5% of Himmelmez's current HP. Fortunately, as we'll discuss later, several of her passive skills actually benefit from HP loss, making this drawback less punishing than it initially appears. Second, we have Usurpation of Power, which is one of Himmelmez's signature control skills. After a 1.5 second fixed cast time, Himmelmez creates an 8-meter radius domain around herself that lasts for 15 seconds. The outer edge of the domain is lined with deadly bone spikes that continuously deal physical damage every 0.5 seconds to enemies standing near its boundary. With the related S rune, the damage of these bone spikes can increase by up to 50%. Enemies attempting to leave the domain are forcibly stunned for 2.5 seconds, making it extremely difficult to escape for classes that lack a dash or displacement skill. However, the most unique aspect of this skill is its interaction with summons. All living enemy summons within the domain are incited and forced to attack their nearest ally, dealing physical damage based on 1000% of Himmelmez's physical attack. This makes Himmelmez a powerful counter against summon-heavy compositions and can create chaos during large-scale PvP and GVG. And third, Himmelmez's other domain skill, Evil God's Paradise, creates a 5-meter radius domain around herself that lasts for 10 seconds. While inside the domain, all players and summons become unable to die, including enemy players. At first glance, this may seem like a disadvantage, but the skill comes with an incredibly powerful secondary effect. All enemy shield effects that have a shield value are temporarily disabled while inside the domain. This makes Evil God's Paradise a direct counter to classes and team compositions that rely heavily on shields for survivability. With the related S rune, enemy players inside the domain also suffer up to 20% reduction in max HP, further weakening their defenses. This can be utilized by Himmelmez as a safe window to position her terrifying creatures, stack bleed and armor shred effects, and prepare her ultimate. By the time the domain expires, enemies may already be heavily weakened, allowing her to finish them off with Execute. One important thing to keep in mind is that both Usurpation of Power and Evil God's Paradise are considered domains and can be converted into Serpent Domain by Jormungandr. As a result, proper timing and awareness of enemy Jormungandr players will be crucial when using these skills in PvP and GVG. Finally, let's go over Himmelmez's passive skills. First, Fallen Angel permanently changes Himmelmez's race to Angel and her attack element to Undead. Offensively, this can be quite beneficial because most enemies do not have particularly high Angel damage reduction, Undead damage reduction, non-demi-human damage resistance, and Undead damage resistance. This passive also changes the damage calculation of Undead attacks versus level 1 elemental armor. Normally, Undead Element performs poorly against most elemental armors because the elemental coefficient is below 1. With Fallen Angel, the coefficient is changed to 2 minus the original coefficient, effectively reversing many of these unfavorable matchups. As a result, Undead attacks become stronger against most elemental armors, but weaker against Holy Armor, where the coefficient becomes 0 against Holy Armor level 2 or above. Other effects that increase elemental coefficients are then calculated separately afterward. As an example, when using Lord of Vane's Relic, the final elemental coefficient against Holy Armor level 2 becomes 0.15. To fully take advantage of this passive, you'll need to invest heavily in the upcoming Undead Damage and Undead Pure stats from Guild Blessings, as well as cards and gear upgrades that provide all element damage and all element pure stats. If you don't have sufficient resources yet to support an Undead focused build, you can either unlearn the skill and continue using elemental converters, or keep the skill and rely on a Kafra teammate to change your attack element to better suit your party composition. Second, Evil God's Coronation increases the damage dealt by her skills, her terrifying creatures, and all living summons in the party by 50%. Because of this, Himmelmez naturally synergizes with summon-oriented classes such as Begetter, Elenia, and the Nameless. In addition, whenever any living summon dies, the damage bonus increases by an additional 10% for 30 seconds, which can stack multiple times. Third, Wound of Blasphemy is one of Himmelmez's strongest offensive passives. Whenever Himmelmez or her terrifying creatures deal damage, the target's physical def is reduced by 5%. This debuff can stack up to 10 times, resulting in a maximum of 50% physical def reduction. Since the terrifying creatures continuously deal damage, reaching and maintaining the maximum armor shred is remarkably easy. This armor reduction also benefits other physical damage dealers, even if they are not part of your party. But the most powerful part of this passive is its second effect. Any excess ignore physical def is converted into bonus damage up to a maximum of 50%. This means that even if you build 220% ignore physical def for current late game PvE content, the excess 50% is not wasted and instead becomes a direct damage increase. In PvP, however, calculating the exact amount of ignore physical def needed to reach the maximum bonus becomes much more difficult since the physical def and VIT values vary significantly from player to player. Fourth, Bloodshot Echo is Himmelmez's primary source of sustain. Every time she kills an enemy, she restores 5% of her max HP, which increases to 20% when killing an enemy player. In addition, whenever Himmelmez takes HP loss damage or consumes HP to cast skills, all enemies within 6 meters suffer HP loss equal to 50% of the HP she lost. At the same time, every point of HP loss is converted into a stackable shield equal to 100% of the HP loss, lasting for 15 seconds. The only limitation is that these shields cannot absorb HP loss damage. And finally, Undying Body is arguably the most important passive in Himmelmez's entire kit. This skill is what ties all of her HP sacrifice mechanics together. For every 10% of HP lost, she gains 10% final damage reduction, 10% skill damage reduction, and 10% AA damage reduction. And when her ultimate is active, these effects are doubled. This means when Himmelmez only has 10% HP remaining, she gains up to 180% final, skill, and AA damage reductions, making her extraordinarily tanky despite appearing close to death. In other words, the closer she gets to dying, the harder she becomes to kill. Undying Body also grants 5 points of physical attack for every 1000 HP lost. To give you a practical example, my character normally sits at around 84,000 physical attack at full HP. After my HP dropped from approximately 1.53 million to around 13,000, my physical attack increased to roughly 118,000. And during Apocalypse Descents, it climbed even higher to approximately 152,000 physical attack, as this effect also gets doubled. So not only does Himmelmez become tankier as she loses HP, she also becomes stronger offensively. Because of this, investing into both VIT and max HP becomes extremely important for maximizing her offensive scaling. Since HP values are quadrupled in PvP, the physical attack conversion effect is reduced to 25% in PvP and GVG maps for balance purposes. Furthermore, Undying Body also prevents healing received by Himmelmez to be stolen or converted into damage. This is a good built-in protection against Saint's Curse Barrier and Dead Soul card users that would otherwise punish her sustained heavy playstyle. To summarize, Himmelmez offers a unique combination of strengths in both PvE and PvP. First, Himmelmez excels at controlling the battlefield. Her kit combines terrifying creatures, persistent area denial with Wrath of God's knockback, Underworld Passage's Truth and Force low effects, and Usurpation of Power's stun zone. Unlike most DPS classes that focus on killing enemies as quickly as possible, Himmelmez forces enemies to fight on her terms. Whether it's controlling choke points, protecting objectives, or limiting enemy movement, she constantly pressures enemies simply by existing in the area. Second, unlike most classes, Himmelmez becomes stronger as she loses HP. Her kit creates a powerful feedback loop where Bloodlust Judgment and Apocalypse Descents continuously drain her HP, while Bloodshed Echo converts that HP loss into shields, and Undying Body converts it into damage reduction and physical attack. As a result, a low HP Himmelmez is often far more threatening than a full HP Himmelmez. And third, Himmelmez offers strong counter to many common late-game strategies. Wound of Blasphemy can reduce enemy physical death, and Bleed Status can reduce max HP, making tanks and supports easier to kill. Evil God's Paradise can temporarily disable shields, making it effective against the Liu Mao Xing meta. Her Force Low, Force Stun, and Root effects can heavily disrupt highly mobile classes. Meanwhile, Usurpation of Power serves as a powerful counter against summon-based classes by turning their own summons against them. But of course, Himmelmez still has some shortcomings that you should consider. First, Himmelmez is not a straightforward class and relies heavily on positioning and setup, as many of her strongest mechanics require preparation and proper timing. To maximize her damage, you need to position her creatures properly, manage their patrol rages, and use your domains strategically. You also need to carefully choose when to activate Apocalypse Descents, as its 45-second fixed cooldown is extremely punishing if used at the wrong time. Because of this, Himmelmez has a much higher skill ceiling than most hero classes. Second, before her defensive passives fully wrap up, Himmelmez can be vulnerable to burst damage and crowd control. Most of her key skills have cast times, making her particularly susceptible to interruptions, silence effects, and cast time debuffs. If she is eliminated before establishing her domains and activating her core mechanics, much of her power disappears. And third, Himmelmez requires significant investment to fully unlock her potential. She needs a significant amount of praying cards and reboot chips to increase her undead damage and undead pure stats. All her damaging skills lack hit modifiers, meaning you need to invest heavily into dex and hit or use the Golden Spirit Boat Relic to remain effective against high fleet chariots. Without sufficient investment, some of her strongest mechanics may feel underwhelming compared to other fully built hero classes. In conclusion, Himmelmez is a powerful zone controller that becomes increasingly dangerous the longer the fight lasts. She offers exceptional crowd control, strong utility, and unique scaling mechanics that reward skilled play. However, her complex skill mechanics, reliance on positioning, and resource-intensive build requirements make her less beginner-friendly compared to more straightforward hero classes. So what do you guys think? Does Himmelmez look weak, balanced, or overpowered? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll also be releasing a full guide on Himmelmez's PvP DPS build in other videos, so stay tuned for that. And as always, keep in mind that the actual in-game content may vary from what's presented in this video. Alright, that's it for this video guys. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed watching this guide. If you're new here, I would love you to consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe button down below. I would love to have you back. Thank you for watching and see you in our next episode.